All right.
Thank you guys for joining me today. My name is Carrie Hunt, and I'm the education specialist.
Carrie, unmute you. Sorry, I muted everybody.
All right, can you hear me now? Perfect. Okay, so my name is Carrie Hunt, and I'm the environmental education specialist for Lancaster Fairfield Community Action Recycling Center. And today I'm going to be talking to you guys about what's best for your garden, which is composting. So composting is a process where organic materials break down and go back into the soil. In a way, you can think of composting as another form of recycling. You can take an apple, you eat the apple, you have the core, you throw it in your compost bin, breaks down into the dirt, goes back into the trees, which makes more apples. So it's a great way to reduce your waste. Composting has a lot of environmental benefits as well. Our soil qualities are starting to deplete, or they're becoming nutrient deficient. So composting adds a lot of great nutrients into your soil. So here is two examples. It's going to be a little dark, but this is just regular dirt that we got from the back of the recycling center, and it's more of a brown clay based. It's not the best quality. Things will grow in this, but they will not thrive as well as what they would do in compost. So a good kind of compost pile will look like chocolate cake that was crumbled up. It's very dark and it has a sweet smell. It smells very earthy instead of just regular dirt, which doesn't really have a smell. So that's a great way to know that you have a thriving compost pile. Now, another reason why composting is very important for the environment is it diverts waste. A quarter of our landfill space is just organic materials that could have broken down. When you throw away fruits and vegetable scraps into a trash bag and you tie it up, it cannot properly break down and it creates a gas called methane. And methane heats up our earth 4 times faster than carbon dioxide. It's very, very toxic as well. So make sure you're throwing your fruits and vegetable scraps into a compost pile to reduce your emissions. A lot of times people think composting is very tricky. You read things about you need to have the right ratios. If you get it too wet, it can draw pests, it smells. And that's true. Composting can have an odor. It can draw a lot of animals, but as long as you're doing it right or trying to do it right, you'll have minimal issues. So the science behind composting is pretty much browns and greens. So browns is carbon and greens is nitrogen. What we say by browns and greens is you're talking about the materials that are going into the compost bin. So browns are things like twigs, leaves, sawdust. You can even put dryer lint and paper into your compost bin, and that counts as brown materials. So that's going to provide the carbon for your compost bin. The greens is nitrogen. So fruits, vegetables, grass clippings, weeds. You're going to want to have a 3-to-1 ratio, but you don't really have to worry about getting that ratio exactly. Just have more browns in your piles than greens and it should be fine. Now, if you notice your compost bin is having a smell and it smells almost like rotten eggs or vinegar, you have way too much nitrogen. You have way too many greens in your bin. If you add brown material, leaves, paper into there, give it a good stir, it'll kind of correct that odor. Now you may notice moisture is a big key in a compost pile bin. If your compost is too dry, the microorganisms that breaks down the materials is not going to be highly active. So it's going to take a very long time for materials to decompose. Same if it's too wet. When you add the greens, so the fruits and the vegetables, it has moisture already in the container. And the produce, that's going to add the moisture, so you shouldn't have to water your compost extra. But if you notice it's dry, once in a blue moon, give it a hose down, and that'll help. So what to put into your compost bin? Anything that comes from nature, that's the best rule. If it comes from nature, you can throw it in there. Just avoid meat and dairy products. If you add those in, you are going to draw pests. And another thing is you are what you eat. So you want to avoid adding animal waste into your compost bin. A lot of times it can have parasites in the waste, and it can affect the microorganisms in your compost heap. A general trick is to make sure you shred down your food waste as thin as possible when throwing it into your compost bin so it breaks down fast. Materials can vary per compost pile and per method. The smaller you get your objects, the better. You can put a whole apple into your compost pile. It's just going to take a couple weeks to break down versus if you just sliced up the core really thin. That'll only take about a week or two to break down. So there's many different types of composting systems that you guys can do at your house. One of the compost systems is called a tumbler. And a tumbler just looks like a big drum, essentially. One great thing about the tumbler is your compost pile is going to need air. So you're going to have to stir it weekly. With a tumbler, it gives you the luxury of just taking a handle and cranking it once or twice a week, and then you're done. You don't have to worry about getting a shovel, digging it all up, making sure everything's evenly stirred. It takes care of that for you. They are fairly expensive though, and they cost around $100 to $300 to $400. So that's an option, but it's not the best financial wise. One of the methods that I recommend, and it's the easiest way, is just an open compost pile bin. What you have to do is you just decide where you want to place your compost pile at, and then how big you want it. So for starting out, I say this, I'll go with a small one, a 2x2. You can either place your materials directly on the ground. You can you want to take a base layer of brown. So you want to have some twigs down, some leaves, and some paper down at the first. And then you start adding your browns and your greens, your fruits and vegetable scraps, your extra leaves, your yard waste, things of that nature, and you pile it all up. You can leave it as a heap. It's not visually appealing, but it's all right, especially if you have a farm. Now, another way that you can kind of jazz up your compost pile is by putting a snow fence, or you could put bricks around it and have a nice little outline so it's nice and contained. This also helps keep kind of pests away from dragging out fruits and vegetables from the compost bin. And then finally, one of the favorite things is vermin compost or worm composting. If you have an apartment and live in an apartment like me, I don't have the luxury of just having a big compost pile out in my backyard. I have to think a little bit strategically on how I can get rid of my waste. So with vermin composting or worm composting, it makes it easy because it doesn't have as big of a smell. Worms are great at eating. They can eat up to half their body weight. But there's a couple things you guys are going to want to know with worm composting that's important. And you can add these just to your regular compost pile too. So one of the worms you guys are going to need to get, which I'll show you here, this is a red wiggler. You can't really see, it's pretty covered in dirt. But red wigglers can eat up to half their body weight. So a solution to that is a pound of worms can eat up to 3 to 3.5 pounds of materials a week. So they're going to be digesting a lot of food and moving food scraps. So if you're a big cook, maybe vermin compost is what you want to do. They have a lot of babies as well. So it's nice because the more food you're producing, the more it's getting down. Now they produce a thing called castings, which essentially is just worm waste. If you have them in a container, which I'll show you a demonstration on how you can start doing your own vermin composting at home, eventually they're going to have so many castings in there, it's going to need to be removed. And that's what you're going to be placing on your gardens and your flower beds. There's a couple of methods that you can do to harvest the worms to make sure that you're still keeping them in your compost pile. And you can look that up, but the best method is you feed them to one side of your compost bin for a couple weeks, and eventually all the worms are going to shift over. And that way you can harvest the castings on the one side, and then you're going to flip it, start feeding the worms on the other side. It's a great method to break down. Now you can use earthworms for any composting pile, and that's fine. It's just not going to break down your materials as fast. So red wigglers, red worms, they are going to be, they're surface eaters. So they will eat whatever is up top and break it down. So they're a great worm to have in your garden. And you can get these at any feed bait shop. They're like $3.50, I think, for 40 or 60. And like I said, they do have babies a lot. So I'm going to show you guys how to make your own miniature version. And you can do this at home exactly how I'm doing it. It's great to see for kids to see the worms kind of working around, eating the food. So here we go. So let's see, you can kind of see it there. So this is just a regular glass jar, and worms are going to need some drainage. So typically you use 2 Rubbermaid containers, and the Rubbermaid container that's inside the other container has holes in the bottom so it can let that extra moisture drop down. If you don't have that, you're going to want to put a good layer of rocks in. I added an extra screen to my container so that the worms can't go down into the rocks, but if you didn't have a screen, it's fine. Then you're going to want to have a layer of paper. They recommend 2 to 3 inches of just paper to get your vermin compost started. And again, just remember, paper is considered a brown. So then what you're going to want to do, which I kind of have it mixed up, is you're going to take some dirt, some water, and some paper, and you're just going to mix it all up. You're going to have the compost like as wet as a wrung sponge. So you don't want it seeping. Just pour it into your container like so, and you can kind of see the paper scraps. And it's okay if you got regular dirt from the garden. One great thing about it though, and what I recommend, is if you can get a little bit of compost, put it in there because it does have the microorganisms started. If you don't have compost, that's fine. Regular dirt will work. But some garden centers do sell compost starters. So to really help push the materials to break down. So you have your paper dirt mixture. And then you're going to want to add the worms. So typically you're going to want to put the worms in, and you're going to give them a couple days to work into the container, move down before you feed them. But for demonstrations purposes, we're just going to feed them today. And it won't hurt them. So we have our worms, they're hanging out around there. And you're gonna wanna feed them. So here is food scraps. Notice this is a banana peel, and it's fairly small. This is the type of pieces why I'm saying that the smaller you can get it, the faster it's gonna break down. Now, every time you feed them with your wet food, so your greens or your browns, you're gonna wanna add some paper into it, just to make sure the ratio of carbon to nitrogen, the 3-to-1, browns to greens, is appropriate. So you're just going to kind of cover them all up, and eventually they're going to just kind of break down. The material is going to break down and go, and the worms will be eating it. Now, you can just leave it like this with the fruits and vegetables on top, but often it brings in bugs. You'll get mites and things of that nature, and you also get little critters stealing nibble from your compost pile. So I recommend just taking another layer of dirt and lightly covering it. You don't have to cover it fully, but just give it a lightly covered. Now, another method that you guys can do to feed your worms, instead of just throwing them on top and keep piling it with dirt, you can push holes, make holes into your compost pile, put the food in, and the worms will eat it too. But it's fairly simple, and the worms, I have probably half a pound of worms. So this, all the food that I just gave them should eventually disappear within a week or so. And yeah, so does anybody have any questions about composting or recycling too? I can also answer this for you. And then if you do have a question, you might need to unmute it.
Carrie, can you also tell us a little bit about the recycling center and what's accepted and when and those kind of things too?
Yeah, so the recycling center, we're open Monday through Fridays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And we have 25 trailer sites around Fairfield County. And if you need a list, you can go to our website, Fair Recycles, and we have all the locations that our trailer sites are at. Now, for the materials that we accept only number 1 and number 2 plastics. make sure they're rinsed out. If they have dairy products or if it has liquids, it smells really bad, trust me, especially in the summer. So we just ask that you rinse it out for us. You can keep the caps on, but we are doing a cap project with the board, and you can take your caps to the recycling center and you can actually donate them out front and they'll get turned into a bench. Other materials we accept is paper and paper board. So paper board is cereal boxes or tissue boxes. A lot of times people think that's cardboard. It's not, it's paper, so it needs to go in the paper bin. Cardboard, tin cans, metals, things of that nature. If you are interested in selling materials, or if you just have a lot of materials that you need help getting recycling out, we have a drive-through system at our facility. You can pull your car up, stop at the stop sign, you'll get motioned in, and our guys will help you get your recycling out for you. So it's very nice. And we're located on 1761 East Main Street. And if you also come to the recycling center, you can ask for me. One thing about composting that I forgot to mention is the convenience is key. You're more likely to compost if it's easy. So I collect all my scraps in a composting pail at home. And we have compost kitchen pails at our recycling facility. They're absolutely free. Just say, hey, you attended the composting session on Zoom, you spoke to Carrie, and you're here to get your composting bucket. And this is a great starter just so you can take your materials out for you. So that's a good incentive to know where the recycling center is at as well.
Okay, so I have some questions in the chat. Is this something I can do in my classroom?
Yes, absolutely. And I recommend so you could do like the glass jar method, just how I am, but like you're going to have to remove your castings more often. So monthly, just because it's not going to be as big of a container as a Rubbermaid. You could use a Rubbermaid container at home. And that brings to the next great point. I also do presentations for classrooms or for any organizations or businesses. They're absolutely free. And I could even come into your classroom and do a composting segment for you guys.
Okay, so 2 more questions. Well, actually, maybe more. If we have an open heap compost pile, should we cover it to help control the moisture?
That's honestly, it's up to you. If you cover it, you're going to want to be careful because it's going to need air. If you do cover it, it's going to kind of be more like a tumbler system. So you're going to need to rotate it more, watch it more for the rotting smell. It's up to you. I would say no. I would say honestly, just water it maybe once or twice a week. Just be kind of cautious and just feel around. Make sure it's warm still. You want your composting heap to have some temperature to it. That'll speed up the microorganisms to break down material. But you also want it to be moist. So just keep that in mind. It's honestly up to you though. It might make you have a little bit more work.
Pam, do you want to unmute yourself and ask that question?
I mean,
there you go. Hello.
Thanks.
Hi.
No, I just was wondering, so I built like a cage type area. So there's probably about like 2 to 3, maybe 2 feet above the pile to where like I was thinking if there was like a corrugated roof to put on top of it. I didn't know if that was something that I should do or just leave it open.
You could leave it open. It's absolutely fine. I mean, we have been, well, we were on a little dry spell, but we have been getting a lot of rain. So that might be a great way to get some rain. I would say just make it where if you want to do the roof, that's fine. Like I said, just keep in mind the moisture. Honestly, I wouldn't know. That's just my suggestion.
We were just, the other thing I'm worried about is we have a lot of like raccoons and opossums and those kinds of things in our neighborhood. So I was trying to keep them from it.
The pests and you've seen them and they've been frequent visitors of your pile. That's when I would say take the extra step, cover it all up completely.
Okay. I think I missed one. What are some of the advantages of composting, and does heat and humidity impact my compost pile?
Heat and humidity does impact your compost pile. Again, it's all about temperature. Your compost pile can get too hot. It's very, very rare, and it's more for industrial composting practices, but sometimes it gets so hot it can create a fire. So that's something to keep in mind, but for backyard composting, like I said, it's very, very rare. Just note it in your head. Humidity is going to play into that moisture complex too. Advantages of composting is really it diverts waste for the environment. It's going to improve your soil quality. No matter where you're at in this world, we have depleted our soils. When we chop down trees or we pull up bushes and we put pavement, we're getting a lot of erosion. The water's just rushing through. We don't have root systems that hold into the water. I could go on and on about our soil qualities and how it's all affected. So it's really going to improve your soil qualities, and it's going to make things grow. Right over here, I have gourds this is compost. And one thing, if you guys are interested and you want a starter for composting, Lancaster Transfer Station has composting available for free, absolutely free. You just have to give them a call, especially with all the social distancing going on, seeing when you can go in to pick up your free compost. So that's a great start. But it grows incredibly fast. These gourds took off. They've been in our container for a little while and they need transplanted, but they were about this height within like the second week. So it's gonna add that extra nutrients. Some people say that they don't need pesticides and herbicides, and I try to stay away when it comes to gardening from all of that. I try to make natural solutions because the composting adds more nutrients. But that's you.
Okay, one other question I see is how often are the recycling trailers emptied?
Yes, so the recycling centers are on a weekly schedule. Some sites get picked up twice a week. Usually we get them once a week at least. You may see often our recycling trailers are full. And there's a couple things when it comes to recycling that we ask when you guys use the trailers that many people don't realize. For one, please break down your cardboard boxes. That takes up a lot of room, whether it's cereal boxes or it's an Amazon large box. Break them down for us. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You literally can just jump on the box and squish it down, and that'll help keep our trailers nice and empty. Another thing with our trailers to help add more material in and to keep our sites clean is to not bag your materials. A lot of people, it's kind of foreign to us. We're so used to bagging our trash and just throwing it away. We want to do that with our recycling. But it's a waste of plastic because we cannot use the bags. And not only that, it makes it takes more time on us because we have to open all those bags up, dump out all the material. So that's one thing. But I do encourage you guys, if our sites are ever full, you can either give us a jingle and let us know. We definitely appreciate that. It may be on our route that day. Or you can take it directly to the recycling center. But if they are full, please don't leave the trash on the ground. A lot of times raccoons or the wind rips open those bags and we have trash blowing everywhere over our sites. And also, please, if you see somebody dumping illegally, we get a lot of couches. We've gotten TVs and we have been getting a lot of paint, full of paint into our recycling trailers. And this is illegal dumping, and it can be a $500 fine. Recycling programs, the success of them is determined by how well we are recycling as a community. And when people are illegally dumping, it costs the recycling center a lot to get rid of. So we just ask, if you do see something suspicious, you can give us a call or give the sheriff's department a call and just say, hey, I seen this car dumping at this location. And that way maybe we might be able to talk to them, educate them about not illegal dumping at our site.
I don't think that I see, oh wait. Would you recommend compost for strawberries, even though they were in small growing / flower boxes?
Honestly, I recommend compost for anything. You need to be careful if you're putting compost in succulents, just because succulents are so sensitive to moisture. But strawberries, garden, anything of that nature, yes. But like I said, just know you are what you eat. So don't add meat, don't add dairy, and definitely do not add animal waste.
These are a lot of good questions. Does anybody else want to unmute and ask a question? I'm trying to make sure I get through everything. Oh, how do you feel about composting eggshells and coffee grounds?
Oh, eggshells and coffee grounds, definitely add those into your bin. The eggshells add a lot of calcium. Now give them a good crush, and I do recommend kind of rinsing them out. That way you don't have the yolk and it decreases the smell. But give them a good crush into your compost pile bin. It'll add great calcium. Same with coffee. And you can even put coffee filters in your recycling bin and tea bags into your composting bin. Be careful though with what filters or with what tea bags you are using in your compost pile. A lot of filters and tea bags are made from plastic. And there's even a study out there that says there's like 100,000 microplastics when you use a tea bag, which is crazy. So you don't want to add plastic into the ground. That's not what we're trying to do. But you can rip open the tea bags up, dump the tea directly in. That'll be fine. But just be careful. Do some research on what exactly you're putting in. And when it comes to paper, adding paper, avoid shiny paper. Avoid anything that has a wax coating on it. Don't add laminated paper. Things like what you pull off a sticker, that type of paper, don't add that as well. That will not be able to be composted because a lot of times, again, it has a small, thin plastic film on it.
You had mentioned that composting is good for the soil. So anyone that has property, do you compost in a certain section of the property? And when the composting is mature, do you spread it over the rest of the property? How does that work?
Sorry, I heard a partial of it. They're dumping cans right now at the recycling center.
Oh. Did you want me to repeat it?
Yeah, could you
repeat it if you want me to?
Yes, please.
Okay. You mentioned that composting is good for the soil. So, and as you were speaking, it seemed like many of the compost that people build outside are usually in a particular section of their yard or in the back. And I'm wondering if when the composting is mature, do you spread it all over the yard? Is that the way it works?
You can spread it. It's up to you. You could just use it just for your garden or for your flower beds, or you can spread it around the yard, and that's absolutely fine. One thing I do want to advise you guys on is, I talked about the soils depleting a little bit. You just don't want to throw an apple out into your yard. You just don't want to throw a banana peel out into your yard. You're going to want to make sure it's in some type of composting heap. The problem with just throwing it, even though it's fine for the soil, wildlife a lot of times eats these items, and they're not used to eating a banana peel or an orange. So just be careful with throwing materials out into your yard, and also try to limit the amount of citrus you're adding into your compost bin, especially if you're composting with worms. The acid, if you add too many oranges, it can be detrimental to your composting heap. So, but you can spread it.
I was going to ask one more thing too. You guys had a program last week about saving the turtles.
Yes.
Do you still have those bags available for people to come out and pick up?
Yes. So if we have been doing a thing at the recycling center, we're once a month, and stay tuned on our Facebook page. It's LFCA Recycling Outreach and Education. We give out take-home packets designed for elementary age students, especially with the pandemic occurring. It's really important we're getting students involved, learning about the environment and caring for the environment. So we just gave out World Turtle Day packets last week, and it talked about pollution and why it's important we save our oceans. And in those packets, we offer fun goodies. Sometimes we have snacks. We have things that are made out of recycled material for the kids. We gave out straws, reusable straws for the kids as well. And we have these packets all the time. Sometimes I might not have them on hand, but I am able to make them up for you. So if it's something you're interested, or your neighbor or a friend's interested, all you got to do is call the recycling center, ask for me, and I'm more than willing to get you guys set up. But we do have extra Turtle Day packets if you guys are wanting some. But we are going to be preparing for National Wind Day. We're going to be talking about renewable resources and non-renewable resources in these packets. That'll be, stay tuned for that, but we should be doing the packet pickups on the 15th and 16th of June from 10 to 2, and it's a contactless pickup. You pull up to the recycling center, which is just across the soccer fields, honk your horn, and I come out and deliver you your packet. It's just as simple.
Those straws are amazing.
They're really
We picked up we got a packet last week, and then my kindergartner's teacher also picked up a packet, so we have 2, and they're awesome.
They're great.
If anybody doesn't have a reusable straw, go pick up a packet for sure.
They're great, but stay tuned for all that stuff. And this is something we're planning on continuing definitely through the pandemic. It all kind of determines when schools open up, so I can start going actually and doing presentations for schools and businesses. And then if you also are a 4-H leader or know a 4-H leader or Girl Scout, Boy Scout troop, point in my direction too. I'm more than happy to do a virtual presentation with them, or depending upon the size of the group, we be opening up tours fairly soon of the recycling center, so I could take them through a walkthrough, which is pretty cool to see the process.
Yeah. Okay, if there's nobody, is there anyone else that has any more questions? We're at 10:32.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. I greatly appreciate it. Like I said, I hope I see you guys coming to the recycling center. If you're ever in this area, say hi. Make sure you guys come pick up a composting pail. They're absolutely free. If you want to contact me, my email is khunt@faircaa.org, or you can give me a call at 740-205-8027. And I'm always here to help with anything environmental.
Thank you so much for being on today. Like, I took a ton of notes. I learned a lot. I really, really appreciate you guys and what you do. I just want to give everybody an update too with the virtual community. Next Tuesday, we're going to have Art and Clay on Main at 10 a.m. And Thursday, we're going to have Keller Market, and also a special virtual community on the 6th at the Farmers Market at the same time. So it'll be Saturday morning, which is in addition to our normal Tuesday, Thursday at 10 a.m. And the link will be going out. It'll be on the Facebook page and also on the community calendar on the DD website. So if anyone has any questions about that, they can get with me. And like Carrie said, if there's anybody that has any questions about recycling, you can get with her because she knows everything there is to know, right?
I guess.
Okay. All right. So that's it.
Everybody spread the word to everyone else, because who knows, this might be interesting to someone that you know. So make it available to anybody you want to.
It'll be recorded on the YouTube channel this afternoon, so you'll be able to get that link too to share the link out.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks so much for coming. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.
Bye.